the new marketing for your small business podcast. Delivering the latest opportunities in marketing to help your small business grow and prosper in a digital world.
Hello and welcome back to the new marketing for your small business podcast. I've got another guest today. This is Angela Kohout. She is the owner of Constructive Consulting, and for the past 15 plus years, she has been helping home construction companies with branding and lead gen and trade shows and business development and all sorts of things. So welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and good morning, everybody.
Yeah, so today's episode, we're going to put a focus on home improvement companies in the Twin Cities, but Angela will be sharing some good advice that would apply to just about any home improvement company nationwide for you listeners outside of Minnesota. So I think a good place to start would be if you could just tell us what the landscape looks like for home improvement companies in Minnesota ever since Minnesota Resco shut down.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because it definitely created a gap in the marketplace for less established remodeling companies to kind of take on some of the demand. I will say that. But I will say there's also been, I know, two larger, similar to Minnesota Resco type companies have moved into the marketplace too, kind of taking up some of that demand and that share of the market. I do think too, with how the media kind of discussed stuff, how the Minnesota Resco went down and what was happening with its clients. It's also thrown a little bit more mistrust with homeowners. They get concerned. I've actually heard homeowners asking, you sure you're not going to go out of business? Like that kind of a thing, because they were such a long-standing, company and had that great reputation and had been around for so long. It was a surprise to a lot of Minnesota homeowners. So just having to overcome that distrust or trust too.
Yeah, absolutely. I had clients affected by that as well. So how do you do that these days? How do you build up that trust in a digital world?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things that I stress with clients is that nowadays you can't just put a TV commercial out there. You can't just shake a hand at a home show and expect somebody to buy from you. Homeowners are the most educated they've ever been with going online and doing their research. Time and time again, I've gone into a home, I do sales training and I do some design and in-home consults for some of my clients, and I'll ask how they heard of us and they'll go, oh, we looked at your website. We saw you with the BBB. We looked at your Google profile, and we used to have to educate all of our clients about our reviews and kind of galleries and things. And I mean, I would say 8 out of 10 homeowners have already done that research. So what that means, and I discuss this with clients that I'm working with, construction companies that I'm working with, is if you don't have a robust online profiles, visibility, good ratings, and have everything filled out, you don't know the calls that you're missing. People aren't even picking up the phone or filling out a form because you don't have that visibility online. So that's part of how you get that trust. If people see you've got 100 reviews, if people see you have a great rating and you're handling your BBB complaints, people still even look at Angie's List reviews. I've had them doing that. So making sure that you've got all those profiles with photos, reviews, projects, so that homeowners are attracted to calling you to have you even be in consideration.
Yeah, I'm curious about reviews. How are you getting your clients to ask their customers for reviews? And then are you having them say specifically, go to this link, this Google link, and leave a Google review, or go to Angie's List, or go to Yelp? What's your process look like for helping with that?
Usually I'm coming in and setting up a process for my contractors and home improvement companies, because they'll say, oh yeah, we ask every client at the end. You have to do more than just ask them. What I encourage them to do is kind of almost build it in as a part of their process. So right in the beginning, kind of making the homeowner aware that if we do a 5-star, project for you, if you feel like we've done a fantastic job, we're going to ask you to give us a review, ask to take photos and videos of your project, and just also put a yard sign in your yard. And if you kind of are building that in as a part of your marketing in your consult with your homeowner and then asking during the project and asking at the end. And when you're asking, you're not just verbally asking, but you're handing them something that says, here's our link to review. You're texting them, you're emailing them. And I usually recommend a couple of times. I've also set up some automation where that can happen too. So if somebody's using a CRM, they can put it into the review kind of task or automation, and it will ask up to 6 times until a review is given. Also varying it sometimes, like making sure, if you get your Google profile significant reviews, then now we want to make sure you get a few to Yelp, get a few to the BBB, because you never know where your customer is looking, your potential client, and also just to make sure you're getting good ratings in all those areas. So,
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So,
making it a part of your process is the biggest thing, and several touch points.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many places that contractors and home improvement companies could be spending their money, whether it's billboards or mailers or social media ads or Google AdWords. There's just a ton of options.
Yeah.
Where are some of the mistakes that you see of where these people are spending their marketing dollars?
I'll say one thing first is what we just talked about is making sure your online presence is good and solid, because I like to tell people everything works, at some way. You know what I mean? So it works for your branding, or it works to make the phone ring right away. Everything works in some portion or part. But if you don't have a good website, user-friendly, that converts to contacts and leads, then you're kind of wasting your money on anything else that you do. So, really helping with the SEO and making sure your profiles look good. I always kind of do that first before I even recommend people spend other money. There's almost like I call it like stages. You don't go and advertise on a billboard or do a TV ad and you don't have a website. Like that's, So there's kind of an order is what I say to do things. What I'm seeing work is anything that can be more of a targeted message. So whether it's, pay per click, or we're looking at streaming ads on TV, if you can target a geographic and a demographic and what you are trying to get in your area and the type of clients you want, those are all, it will work. But again, there's that process of making sure you've got your back end, your back of shop operating, and that people can find you. Because these days, when people see an ad on TV, they immediately go to their smartphone, their iPad, and they Google you. And funny fact is, years ago when I was working with Minnesota Resco and I just started, they were spending a significant amount on TV and you could not find them online to save your life. And it made me sick to the stomach. It really did. I told the owner that. I go, I'm like nauseous because I know a big portion of your advertising is going to your competitors because they were buying the Minnesota Resco name. So, and I know that sounds funny. They were about a $7 million company then when I first started with them. And that's one of the first things in the first 6 months there that we really worked on, was helping that online presence. And that when people went to go look for Resco windows or Resco bathrooms, they were finding Minnesota Resco, not our competitors. So that's kind of, I think, something that people do wrong, is maybe doing it backwards. I also think the pay per lead, like buying a lead for a kitchen or a bathroom or roofing, I don't advise that to be a significant part of your marketing, because it's not building your brand. It's not helping your SEO. It's not helping bring the brand of your company to the forefront. It can be a good turn on, turn off faucet, for maybe when you have slow times or you brought on a new salesperson and you need leads tomorrow, So it can be good for that, but typically doesn't work well either unless you have somebody that's pounding the phones or texting and following up on every single one of those leads. So
no, I've actually wondered about that myself for those types of companies, because like you said, if they're just paying a service to have their phone ring, then their brand is not getting out there at all, is it?
And you're getting the low value clients, to be honest with you, because you're getting people who have not looked at your website. They haven't looked at your ratings. Now you can send an automated text, right, out to those. There's ways to make it work better. It's just not something I would say, okay, put 100% of your marketing dollars into, and not something that I would recommend as a as the only source of your marketing. So, and also putting all your eggs in one basket. That's another thing I think that home improvement companies sometimes make the mistake. They do a few home shows, the home shows go well. So then all they do is home shows. They're not investing in their SEO and their branding, or all they're doing is SEO. They're missing out on maybe some of the high intent clients that you can get with pay-per-click. If someone's actually clicking on an ad that says, hey, I want a kitchen remodel, that's somebody that's really like ready, right, to be contacted and talk to you. So I think doing just one thing either, having some diverse marketing strategies.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned home shows because I know you have a lot of experience with that. So for these contractors out there who are thinking of having a booth at a home show, what is the difference between the type of booth or the type of presence you have that people just avoid eye contact and walk right by quickly versus actually stopping and talking?
I usually tell anybody thinking about doing home shows for the first time, let me buy you a cup of coffee and let's sit down and talk. Because I've been told over the years by Rusco's competitors that I was one of the best in the marketplace with running a booth and having a process. I think that is the biggest mistake people do the first time doing a home show is they put so much time and effort in what their booth looks like. And they forget about how am I getting people in my booth? How am I engaging with homeowners? Who's working my booth is a huge thing. A lot of times the guy that's the contractor is not the best person to be in the booth. They tend to be a little more introverted. They're not comfortable talking to every single person walk by. I've also had contractors be a little cocky, and it's kind of funny. They'll say, oh, if they're interested, they'll talk to me. No, I will prove time and again that you have to talk to really every single person that walks by. One of my favorite phrases is just to say, so what brought you out to the home show today? And they'll go, oh, I don't know. We're thinking about some home improvements. Great. Again, open-ended. What kind of projects are on your list? So open-ended. And then people will go, oh, well, we're thinking about a bathroom. And I'll go, well, wow, that's what we do. They would have just walked by. But when I engaged with them and talked to them, then they were kind of like, yeah, we are. And you get that conversation going. Another mistake people make in their booth is not having a very clear marketing message when you talk about putting your booth together. Very simple, very clear, not too much clutter. Homeowners need to know right away, what you do with your pictures and your name and branding. And then just follow up. I recommend trying to set the appointment right there in the booth because other companies are. And I learned that years ago. I was working with Bath Fitter and they were not setting appointments in the booth when I first started there. And I said, we need to do this because I was the person calling the leads too after the home show. And I was realizing, a third of these people to, a half were already sold by the time I got a hold of them. So, yeah, they were interested. Yeah, they wanted me to call them. But then by the time I got a hold of them, they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, we already went with another company, or, oh, we already have enough estimates. So booking it in at the show is huge. I can't tell you how many times somebody I had a great conversation with or my contractor had a great conversation. Oh, they're going to call us. We never hear from them again. So having a good process of collecting the information, having a reason for people to stop, it's more complicated than people think it is. But if you have it, then the home show will be very successful. If you don't have it, you're not going to get as much as you would have hoped for in your ROI. So
right, it's not cheap to put together a booth and to rent it and to have that presence and to have staff there all day. That is a big investment, isn't it?
It is. That's why it's so important that you have a process and you do it right. And what's your after the show process? And are we collecting? Remember, a lot of people at the home show, there's people just gathering information. They're really not looking to do a project maybe this month. So what are we doing with those people? I will say some contractors go, I don't want to bother with that. I'm only looking for the people ready now. But that is that top of funnel client lead that if you follow up, it's going to turn into more business and you're going to have a better ROI on your marketing. And that's kind of any kind of lead you get. You're going to get top of funnel clients and then you're getting those high intent clients. Again, I learned that best at Minnesota Rusco. They had a telemarketing room that used to pound the phones with leads from 40 years before. And every year they would sell another $1.5 million from old contacts, from 1998, to be honest with you. I mean, 2002, we'd get a lead that would convert to a $50,000 sale. So that's just, I tell people that's money you're leaving on the table if you aren't following up that way.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears for a sec and talk about AI. I know a lot of contractors are busy people. They don't have time to do their own marketing. And I've seen a lot of them kind of take the shortcut of just having AI write all their posts, make images for their posts. And what's the danger in that? And where is AI actually useful for these contractors?
Yeah, I guess when we first talked about AI, I wasn't sure which route you were going. You're right. There are a lot of people using that kind of generic content. I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it's the only thing you should be posting, because creating that story, that brand with your client. An example, I won't say names, is someone that I'm working with right now, and their social media is really not converting. And the reason why is the ads are very generic. Like when people come away from it, they see a pretty shower, a 1-day bathroom, 2-day project, but they aren't remembering the brand. They're not remembering the name. They're not getting the feeling of local. People like to shop local. Homeowners do it when possible. They usually, anytime I've talked to homeowners, they really like a small company, a local company, someone they can walk down the street, walk into their office, walk into their showroom. So creating a story in your brand of that, it also helps you clients get the right type of customer. Are you a 1-day, 2-day bathroom remodeling company? Or are you a high-end luxury remodeler, right? It's a big difference. What kind of client do you want calling you? So I think that's the mistake people use with using AI, is if you're just not creating some original content, I think that can be a problem. Where I think they should use AI, and I've actually been setting up programs and campaigns for a few people, and I'm encouraging them to use, is instead of hiring a telemarketer or someone hitting the phones, when your lead comes in, using AI to start immediately that conversation with a potential client, booking the appointment right on your calendar, they can. So especially for the 1 guy, 2 guy, you look like a big company. You look like you have a receptionist and somebody who's on the ball, and getting a hold of that customer right when they have intent, having them fill out a form, and then you call them 2 days later. Again, it's kind of like the home show lead you didn't really follow up on. Somebody else is booking that probably right away. So I think using AI for that is great, like as a virtual assistant or an appointment setter. Using AI to reach back out and set up those processes. So instead of it being kind of a bot, just 1 or 2 line text, having it sound more like a person. I think AI can accomplish that too, that it makes it. I've set up a campaign actually for a mortgage broker, and I loved it. It was so cool. Like homeowners really thought they were talking to a real person and texting with a real person. And then, he'd wake up in the morning and he'd have appointments on his calendar. So it was pretty cool. So it can be used that way. And I will be honest, I've even used it to outline, like, maybe what's the perfect sales call for a home improvement? Like, how should a meeting go, or how should a contract look? But you can't just use it. You have to still look at it, tailor it some to yourself. But that's a great way to use, I think, AI too.
Awesome. No, that's super helpful. So what is the secret sauce that makes people choose one home remodeling company or home construction company over another one? You mentioned that local presence in that story, but what else is it?
Well, trust, like we said in the beginning. So making sure that people are going to pick up the phone and call you at first, right? Number one, like your profiles look good. You've got good ratings. They can find you easily. They can do their research when they're looking for that particular project, So making sure your SEO and your message is really clear online. That's number one, or else you're going to get things that you don't do, or you're not going to get called when people are searching. But in the home, it's honestly, they have to like you. People do business with people they like and trust. That's still never going to go away, if that makes sense. You've got to have the online presence. You got to have that piece, but then you also have to be prepared when you come in the home with a nice, simple presentation, showing your projects, showing your work, building that rapport. People will say they choose working with me, for example, because they're like, yeah, I like you. I like the projects that you've done. You look like that looks right up our alley. So sometimes that's where contractors need help. And that's why I say I kind of customize my services, because Maybe when they get in the home, they're just not presenting themselves, as well. Also being very detailed in your estimates. Clients really like that. And they may not tell a contractor that, but I hear it. If I go in the home after somebody and I give them a super detailed estimate, breaking down everything out, it's very black and white. They'll go, yeah, the last guy just kind of wrote it on a notepad. So I think that is too. And I mean, all these things, like for example, calling someone back right away, right? Texting them their confirmation for an appointment. When you set the tone at the beginning, it shows the customer what it's going to be like to work with you. If you take 2 days to get back to a lead that inquired on your website, does that tell them that you communicate really well with them on their project? It kind of sets the tone. So that's why I think it's important if you have that automation. If you're a 1-man, 2-man show, the automation will help you immensely. So I hope that answered the question. So I think building that online trust, having a good in-home appointment, and being thorough and detailed.
Yeah, I'm curious about the detailed estimate. So let's say it was a kitchen remodel. So you're not talking about just separating out materials and labor. Are you talking about like the cabinets are this much, the counters are this much, the center island is this much?
And I know some contractors kind of shy away from that, but I find homeowners are attracted to knowing. And another key thing that I've been implementing with a few companies for salespeople is don't give them just one option. So let's say I'm building a kitchen estimate, right? And the cabinets are $30,000. That's labor, install, and our markup. Do you know what I mean? The margin that you're going to do. And then you've got a budget for countertops. And a lot of times we start with budgets until people pick things out. Or if they have an idea what they want, I can be more accurate in those estimates. But yes, breaking it out so they kind of understand where their money is going. Because for homeowners, it's also an education. How many times do you remodel your kitchen in your lifetime? Right? A lot of times it's only once and it's their first time doing it. So they don't even understand like what things cost and how did we get to this $120,000 estimate, What am I getting? And it also helps when you move forward and you're building a contract, very detailed. So the homeowner knows what they're getting, what you're providing, and it's very black and white because I've had gray areas bite me in the butt in the past where a client thought their fixtures were all included and it's like, no, they're not. And we didn't budget for it, that kind of stuff. When I was talking about giving them 2 options, anybody who's sold a kitchen or a bathroom knows we can sell it for 8 to 10 grand, or we can sell it. Gosh, I've sold bathrooms for 75,000. What is the difference in there? So giving a homeowner, hey, this is everything you wanted. This is your dream. Knocking down the wall in that kitchen, Cambria countertops, custom cabinets. But if you built the trust enough in the initial appointment that they kind of give you a budget range, then maybe coming in with a lower. I did this just the other day with one of the salespeople at West End Kitchen. We were delivering a final proposal to clients, and we were over their budget. We were the initial budget. But again, the but is they added a ton of electrical, right? They wanted under cabinet lighting. They decided to do more of a new cabinets instead of facelift. So they understood, they did know it was going to be more than their original budget, but I still had a drop down that fit their original budget.
Yeah.
So I have a drop down. I have this. We still can do it. I said for the 50, 60, we can do it. You're just not going to get everything you want. For everything you want, we're at the 75 kind of price range, And that is, I think it's just the way you should do it, because now you're not saying, hey, do you want to work with me? Yes or no? This is the price. Yes or no? It's more, we are working together. Do you want to do A or do you want to do B?
I love that.
It's assuming the sale too, right? I know you like me. You've had me back here. We've met at a showroom. We've made some selections. It's not a matter of, are you doing business with me? It's what way are we doing business? Mm-hmm. So, and guess what? They went with the higher estimate. And they didn't feel pushed into it. Do you see what I mean? There's a difference. They didn't feel pushed into it. They made the choice to do the more, right? They made that choice to get what they really wanted. I like doing it that way. And a lot of bathroom companies will call it too, just good, better, best. Mm-hmm. We have our good level, we have our middle level, and then we have our high end, design projects. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap things up here, you've shared so much good advice already. But if you had to leave contractors or their marketing team that's listening just one piece of advice, one thing that they really need to take away from this episode, what would you tell them?
To plan. The phrase of failing to plan is planning to fail. And I use that a lot, even just in my own business, that if we're not putting some kind of plan together, we're planning that we're going to fail. You're just throwing money on the wall and hoping something sticks. I've seen companies do that and they get frustrated and they're like, I've spent $2,000. I don't know where it went, kind of thing. So putting a plan in place and then making sure you're tracking. That's another thing that I see a lot of companies, home improvement companies, not doing. They don't know where their sales are coming from. They're like, we've got sales, but I couldn't tell you last week where that lead came from. That's huge. Planning and tracking would be the two things. And working with somebody that can give you some advice. And if you're not good at it, then outsource the stuff you're not good at and work on the things you are good at.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. So if there's companies out there that would like to learn more about you or have a conversation with you, where can they reach you? Where can they learn more?
Yeah, well, I have my website, constructiveconsultingmn.com, has a lot of good information about me and some of my background. I would love to have a phone call, 612-998-4999. It's constructiveconsultingmn.com. Again, I always say let's have a cup of coffee. Let's have a 30-minute conversation. And most people get a lot of value out of that with me, just from that. And then if we decide to work together, great. If not, that's okay. No hard feelings.
Well, hey, thank you so much for being on the show. I think this is going to help a lot of small businesses out there.
Well, thank you, Luke. And thanks for the great work you do. I always like working with you too. And you do great content for my clients. So I appreciate
that. Thank you. This has been the New Marketing for Your Small Business podcast. If this episode was helpful to you, share it with someone you know. Share it with a contractor. Share it with a small remodeling company. Leave us a review, and we'll see you next time.